Get our seats and we'll get restarted on this. We've got our audio back up and video, I think. Chad, I don't know where to tell you to start off. I guess we just start here again and take off again.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We were talking about chapter 4, the land uses chapter. That's the one that sets down the rules for what kinds of uses and where they can be in the process that you use to follow them. I mentioned the summary use table. It's designed to make it easier to find what kinds of uses can I do in my property, or if I've got a particular use in mind, what district should I look for? So a couple of different ways to think about it. We've broadened the array of uses to include modern uses, including some more residential types that offer some more alternatives to folks, but stop short of large townhouse built developments or large multifamily. What we're suggesting the town consider are really kind of small scale, low intensity ways to get a few houses, 4 houses, 5 houses together in closer proximity, or a conservation subdivision. Now, you guys may look at this stuff and say, that's not right for us. And that's fine. We can take that information out. We wanted to put it in so that you had something to look at and respond to. That's why there's a broader array of residential use types. Finally, this chapter sets down additional rules and clarity for people who want to do secondary uses, temporary uses. Okay, a secondary use is an accessory use, right? Maybe I want to have a home occupation. Maybe I want to have a home-based business, right? Or maybe I run a business, but I want to do a couple of different things there, right? The whole idea behind these secondary uses standards is to make sure that we're accommodating that and creating some clarity and surety about the fact that you can do this, and there's some provisions in there that protect you. I do think that if you're on a piece of property that's 3 acres in size or larger, you probably shouldn't have to worry about these standards, right? Because you've got enough room that, whatever you do isn't going to necessarily affect your neighbors in a negative way. Now, if you've got a smaller lot, there might be some compatibility things that we want to explore. Whether or not we end up including that in the final document, we have to talk about it. But that's an idea for us to think through. Temporary uses so that the town staff has some clarity about how we handle, special events or grand openings, or I need to do a temporary dwelling or something like that. Just some additional predictability and clarity about how that stuff operates. And so that's also in this chapter. Principal uses, secondary uses, temporary uses. Okay.
You ready for a couple questions on this section?
Yes, sir.
Let's do it.
Okay.
So in all the steering committee meetings and all I've not attended, is anybody brought up the possibility of being able, everybody's talking about figuring out a cheaper way for family to be able to live here.
Yes.
So if they can accommodate the lot size, can they possibly do some kind of family?
Like an intergenerational setup. Maybe it's even multiple houses.
Yes, that's where I'm going with this. Could they do a family subdivision with possibly a smaller lot size with a common driveway through it, to accommodate for some of this?
Sure, great idea. I think the question on the thing that we should ask ourselves is, do we want to be in the business? And maybe we do and maybe we don't. We just need to give some consideration about asking somebody, is this your family, right? Should the ability to do that kind of development hinge on it's for my family, or is that going too far? So that's something we should think about. The idea is a good one. Do we want to apply that additional kind of threshold requirement that the people who live there are related or not? And something to think through.
And not only that, but I would go as far as to say, not only are they related, but to apply some kind of deed restriction on it to where a developer can flip it somehow and turn these into spec homes.
Right.
The original family moves off shortly after they're built or whatever.
Right.
They take it over, be some kind of year frame that they've got to live there.
Right. Okay.
I mean, as bad as it sounds, I mean, if we're looking for some kind of affordability, this may be a route we go.
Sure.
If we're trying to protect our own. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to protect our own.
Sure, sure. Yeah,
Uh,
that's a great concept. Let us
so-
explore that and bring something back to
Okay.
you that contemplates how that might work.
Okay. Now getting back to the secondary usage. So I had somebody call today. Say they got a high school son. He's working at the parts house after school. He's all about cars and mechanic work. He don't want to go to college. He wants to go figure out this mechanic deal.
Mhm.
And, the parents are saying, my plan was to build him a shop here at the house. You know,
Mhm.
we've got the room, but it looks like I may not be able to do that.
Mhm.
Is this going to be the chance for that to happen? And I don't,
Right.
that's a one-off.
Mhm.
There's going to be, it could be a barbershop, it could be a hair salon, it could
Right.
be a numerous things.
Right.
But is that the fix for that question when I
Sure.
get at it?
So this idea about the secondary use standards is absolutely the part of the ordinance where you would address those kinds of issues. People who want to do a home-based business like the son's, sort of mechanic shop, or I want to do hair, or whatever. I want to dress deer,
Right.
whatever it might be. This is the place where those standards could be. And how those are structured depends on our conversation. Can you do it? If that's the will of the council, sure you can. Absolutely. What our goal or what our charge is to make sure that when you're doing it, you're able to use your property in ways that work for you and in ways that don't interfere negatively with your next door neighbor's right to enjoy their property, right? And that's what all of those standards are about in the first place, is to make sure that, we've got a safe environment for people to operate vehicles and that you're not negatively impacting your neighbors. And as long as we've got standards to address those concerns, there's no problem with that, right?
Okay.
Eh,
This,
do you want us to explore? It sounds like you're interested in us allowing a fairly broad array of secondary uses on sites.
well, I mean, I'm just trying to address some of the questions that
Sure.
I've been asking. I'm afraid that they're not coming to y'all and asking at these invitations to
Right.
come and preach it.
Well, I hope they will.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking them to do. I'm begging them publicly and on Facebook and everything to, I need y'all's help in this.
Yeah,
Get
yeah.
whatever you want. Let's get it in here if we
Right.
can.
Right.
Uh, but yes, I think we should at least look down that avenue
Mhm.
and give some of our locals, and some of them may even be moving here in the future, an opportunity to possibly do some of those things.
Mhm.
I'm sure they're not all going to fit.
Right.
I got asked today, once this all goes residential, what about my horses and my cows I got in the yard?
Mhm.
And I said, well, I'm talking just from my background in politics, but I think there's state and federal statutes that you're limited to some things you can have regardless,
Mhm.
as long as you take care of it. But,
Sure.
I need your clarification on that to pass on, I guess.
Sure. Cows, we're okay, right? Now I'm nervous about whenever I
Yeah.
see something pop up on the screen.
But,
Okay.
but
Yes, cows, horses are absolutely fine. And it's not uncommon to have rules about, okay, you want five horses or you want to keep cows and you're in a residential neighborhood, here are the provisions
yeah,
for
there's
that.
usually setback standards and all for,
Yeah, there's usually some fence rules and,
Yeah.
don't pile the manure near the lot line and, control for flies and things like that. I mean,
Yeah, I
that's,
was able to find some of those in there, like on where the dog kennel
Mhm.
facilities,
Right,
I can
right,
see some of that language in there.
right.
Um, this may be going back a step, but, on the rules, when, so where, that's bad, it didn't even sound right. But where could you put, say, a nursing home facility? Are
Mhm.
they gonna be, is that a rural aspect to it? I got, I mean, can it go? Yeah, rehab facilities, can it just be plopped down anywhere as long as is there an acreage requirement for those type facilities
Mhm.
or?
Mhm.
Okay,
So we identify congregate care, which would be a nursing home,
okay,
right? But that's a nursing home that isn't a heavy medical kind of a thing, right? It's more of a what in my parlance we would have called an old folks home.
right,
There's not there's some medical service, but there's not tons of medical kind of care there. We're suggesting at this point that be allowed by right in LDR and MXR. Okay, so our more dense residential districts. another thing that I want to be sure to call your attention to is we've listed this as an allowable use in the residential conditional zone. Okay, so let me explain how that might work. Okay, let's say for the sake of argument that you had a piece of property that was, you know, AGR, which is a new district, or it was RUR, it was a rural residential district. You wanted to do a congregate care use, but it's not allowed in that base zoning district. You could propose a type 1 or a limited conditional rezoning to do that specific use, right? Even though it's not allowed in your base district, you can rezone your property to get that ability to do that wherever it is, right? And there's an opportunity in that instance for planning board to look and consider the application, for this body to look and consider the application and work with the applicant to hammer out any site-specific compatibility issues. So that's an example of the flexibility that's built into the system. We don't have to just say, oh, well, I'm sorry, Chad, you're in the RUR district, no congregate care for you, right? Here's your path to solve, to reach that goal. You know, if you happen to be, if you want to do that use and you happen to be in one of the districts where it's permitted, great for you. You don't even have to worry about the conditional rezoning. But the point that I would make is after everybody's had a chance to look at this list and digest this, there's probably going to be some suggestions about, gosh, I think we should allow this use or that use in some of these other districts. Or, wow, Chad, I can't believe that we're going to allow, small wireless facilities in the GLC district. Why are we doing that? It's our hope to have that conversation with the community as we go forward over the next few weeks and months talking about this stuff. This is not here as the last word, it's the first word, right? And we're hoping to talk more about it. Because y'all know Mills River better than we do. We're here to show to talk about, here's how they solve problems in other places. But at the end of the day, this is y'all's code. It's we're here to help you get the community that you want. That's what we're for. Sure.
Just wanted to add a little bit on that. One of the other things that you will see in module 2 is chapter 6, which is standards. And one of the things that we can include in chapter 6 are design standards for buildings. So if, say, a congregate care or, that type of higher, I don't want to say density, but that, a bigger impact building like that, we could require design standards for what that building may look like. So that is another, again, option that we could include on a specific use basis. And those would be included then in the design standards there or in the use standards in chapter 4. So that's just another option.
And one thing, our overlay district could restrict some of those locations just with the watershed.
Absolutely.
And impervious surface
Sure.
alone.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. And that will continue. I mean, the water supply watershed rules are being carried forward. Those are given to us by the state. And so we'll be honoring those regardless. And our objective is not to overwhelm or confuse or give you guys too much. What we're trying to do is say, here's, the community, here are the things that you guys want. There's this host of tools that you can put in your toolbox. Let's figure out what our choice or what, our options are, and then put the tools in the toolbox that make sense for us. And the ones that don't, we don't need them.
Gotcha.
But if we don't show you the tools, then you don't know that they exist.
Right. And now that we're getting this information too, people like myself it's very easy for me to reach out.
Mhm.
Simple email.
Yes.
These people give me these questions. I'll forward them on to you guys.
Yep.
Get them to the steering committee locally, let them think about them as well and keep processing them.
www.imaginemillsriver.com has a place for people to pose a question. And if you'd like an answer emailed back to you, include your email. If you wouldn't, then just pose the question.
I wish we got to rename that because we're hearing a lot of people say, we don't need to imagine it. We live in it every day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that kind of gives our locals a lot of heartburn. That goes back to that 150 phone calls a day. It's amazing how many times people say, who come up with that name? Imagine Mills River. Well, I said, wasn't me, but nevertheless, I passed it on. So Yeah, so.
If this is a real problem and we
It's
need to
not.
change the name of the
At this
webpage,
point, it's not a real problem.
Might
It's
be.
just a very good discussion item because
Mhm.
we are talking about the people that actually physically live here,
sure,
Right.
trying to make a decision. So it's really, I get the imagine part, but they're like, they almost feel like they're in a wonderland anyway.
Mm.
So any change is gonna be difficult.
sure.
I mean, it's gonna be difficult.
Right.
Yeah, I think the idea is imagine what it will be like if we don't do anything versus imagine what it'll be like if we try to preserve what we've got.
Right.
So, Yeah.
Some of the concerns I've heard is like if you look at the zoning map
Mhm.
and you're in a zone that says rural residential, well, they look at that and say, well, I own enough, if that's lotted out, they start seeing lots and houses and they don't realize that they still have acres of grass and woods and stuff, just because it's in that zone don't mean it has to become that.
Right.
And then when you look over here on the uses, and you think, okay, I live in this zone, well, this is no longer an option I can do, and this is no longer an option I can do because it says permitted or prohibited.
P is permitted.
Uh-huh,
The dot is you can't do-
prohibited,
Yeah, you're prohibited,
Right.
correct.
but some of those are kind of concerning when we don't have the definitions.
Mhm. Understood.
So we really need that as soon as we can get it.
Yes, ma'am.
And if a person had an acreage of land and they're in a residential district, but they've got farmland, um, does that mean they can't farm there anymore?
Absolutely not. They
Okay.
they can continue to farm.
Even if people move around them?
Mhm.
Okay,
Absolutely. And we continue to search for ways to add more clarity about how we're protecting farming and how we're promoting the continued farming activity here in Mills River. And, the bona fide farm status does give you exemption from these rules. It absolutely does.
but you can still farm with rules,
That absolutely. You sure can.
like raised gardens, and
Absolutely.
stuff like that.
There's
A bona fide farmer is an industry farmer.
Mhm. Absolutely positively no limit at all on individuals who want to have a garden, who want to grow their own food. Absolutely no limit at all. And if we need to, we can make that outwardly clear in the ordinance that gardening is allowable. If folks are concerned or like, wait a minute, does this mean I can't garden? Because I don't think that would be our intention at all.
See, I think to clarify, as strange as it is, as big as this change is, even for this council, we're, as a common sense as it might sound, why, yeah, you're gonna be able to do that. We're a little standoffish because everything's feeling like it's such a big burden to us. I really don't know what to tell these people. Anytime before, I said, well, you be able to do whatever you want to do.
Mhm.
Now I'm having to say, we're gonna have to figure it out.
Mhm.
I'm figuring it out with you.
Right.
I'm getting this information about as quick as you're
Sure,
getting it. And I hope the general public understands that. We're getting it just maybe a day or two before you can get your hands on it, if that.
and
We-
I know this isn't really the forum to go get really deep into the details, but Sandra, you brought up the farming in a residential area, and some people have a rather large piece of property that I'm not a farmer, but I've been blessed to have some land that somebody can farm. And so I wouldn't meet the standards of being a bona fide farm, but I would want to protect. If someone's got 2 or 3 acres and they live next to a hay field and the farmer, hey, can I cut hay on your land? I want to be able to protect that, as well. Even though I won't be a bona fide farmer, I want someone to be able to do that.
We wouldn't want our neighbors to tell us that they didn't want us having a farmer come over and cut our own hay
Sure.
for profit or not profit.
Right. Understood.
So we just need that language to definitely
Or have a
dictate that.
few horses. Someone may have some land, they love horses, but they don't feel like raising horses, and hey, bring your horse, you can put them on my land, you
Right,
know, want to
right.
protect that.
So we want to clarify that folks who have residential land or even maybe some non-residential zoning land still can engage in agricultural activity, right? And I think that's what I'm hearing you guys saying, being sure that that's outwardly clear. At the same time, I want to ask the question about those folks who may have residential zoning who are not a bona fide farm, okay? And they decide, I'd like to have a greenhouse that has, that's 2,000 square feet in size and I'm going to run lights all the time, or I'd like to process, you know, uh, 2,000 chickens a week. To be an industrial scale kind of an agricultural operation, I'm making sure that's not something that we think would be a good idea. Is that true?
I would think that would have to come back here for a conditional zoning permit or conditional
Something.
zoning rezone
Something,
to make sure it fit what the planning board and council at that particular time and
Right.
this phase of their life felt was suitable for the town.
sure.
I would consider, I live in a residential district. The houses are pretty close. And at one point, one of the people that owned the house beside me decided they was going into the chicken industry. And they started slaughtering like 40 chickens every 8 weeks. That was a problem. So stuff like that does not need to be allowed to happen.
Right, right. So we need to continue to work with you guys to find that precision in there about, okay, this level of agriculture up to this, that's okay. Past that, not okay. That's what we're hunting for. That's part of why we're here, is to figure where are those bright lines that everybody can agree on.
Well, if they have room for it, that's one thing. But when you live right on top of somebody, that's not cool.
Sure, sure. Right. The devil's always in the detail when it comes to this stuff. And so that's the part that we're working through now. And the agricultural stuff is particularly challenging because the definitions are so very broad. What is agriculture changes all the time, and the state has its own opinions about what or isn't agriculture. So we're working through that, and your steering committee is pretty active in trying to help guide us about what's going to work best for Mills River. But yeah, we still need to hear from you guys about how do we calibrate this to work right for you. It's definitely not our intention to come in and say, oh, well, you shouldn't be able to have, 10 chickens. You shouldn't be able to, have your side yard have hay in it that the farmer down the street cuts. That would be a little bit much, a little bit draconian. And I don't think that was our intention. At the same time, we were pretty sure you didn't want a zoning ordinance that said, hey, you want to have a chicken processing plant next to my house? Great, come on. Which it doesn't sound like you do either. So I realize those are extreme examples, but we've got to find where is that line that's acceptable. And how, this is the process that we do. This is how we find that line.
Well, we're still rural and people still deer hunt here. And
Sure.
if you deer hunt, you have to be able to field dress it.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's gonna happen.
Right. And so,
Go ahead, Tim.
no, I'm sorry.
So we picked up a following from the tiny home community here in the last few months, and that was back in the day, that was a big deal here. They felt like if they went around our 30,000 square foot zoning and slipped it through in another opening that we missed. Where will that stuff be allowed? We need to clarify that because they become good neighbors. It's not been what anybody expected
Right.
up my way. So I just want to know, is it going to be a possibility for that to happen and where it could happen?
Sure. Great
It don't
question.
fit in everywhere,
Right.
but I
We-
need to know.
We have incorporated in the zoning district tables. We try to identify different kinds of residential uses so that people kind of can see the dimensional standards for the different kinds of uses that are allowed. To your question, would we do tiny homes? Answer, yeah. As long as, so first off, if somebody has a lot meeting the minimum
Sure,
lot size
sure.
of the district, can they have a tiny home? Yeah.
I'm talking more about the communities. But
Right,
yeah,
where
I
the-
get where you're going.
They're kind of they're kind of clustered around one another, and maybe there's 10 of them or 12 of them, and maybe they have a driveway that they all share. Can you do that? Sure, absolutely. We would call that a pocket neighborhood, and we'd have some standards there about how that needs to be configured. What are the lot sizes, and what do you need to do to screen that from your neighbors so that, your ability to have a different kind of a dwelling doesn't impact my ability to sell my house.
Can I throw a local, advisement in there too?
Sure.
We probably need to look at the availability of water and availability of sewer,
Mhm.
because that is a hard thing around here to make happen. So I don't even know if they're dealing with it up there. That was one of the things, it's all put on field, and I knew they wouldn't sewer lines up there. So as a builder, I said, that's gonna be a failing system that this town's gonna have to fool with for years to come.
Right. Right.
So we're gonna have to look into that.
Sure. Sure.
Okay, so we'll take note of that one.
I think, you know, the idea that some of these smaller lots need to be on sewer is absolutely right. And so then the question becomes, is it cost prohibitive to extend the sewer to serve those kinds of uses? And it may well be, or at least it may well be in some places. That's a real problem that the individual developer is not going to be able to overcome. Town of Mills River is not going to be able to overcome because y'all aren't paying for the sewer. So, that's something that we have to factor in. We've got ideas and things here about how you could do this bungalow court or that pocket neighborhood. But at the end of the day, if you can't get sewer out there, now we have some options, right? And that's stuff that we can continue to talk about, like community level package plants, right? A septic system that serves more than one house. Maybe that's something you want to explore. Maybe not. Some folks will do those. Some folks won't.
I'm pretty sure that's what they're on up there. I don't think they have individual septics on that. Yeah, y'all share, they share water and a package facility.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's another option. And it's possible for us to talk about that. If you want to do one of these, small lot, small house kinds of developments and sewers out of reach, then there's going to need to be some kind of community level facility. And here are some of the, the parameters around how that will work.
We'd probably need some help from an engineering aspect on that.
Certainly.
Because them things do fail. And
Yes.
when they fail, it starts at the municipal level and goes all the way into the county and sometimes the state. So
Right. Right.
we wanna, some of these things might be better restricted
Right.
to, I'm just saying,
To areas that are proximate
Yeah.
to sewer. No, you're wise to do that because yes, when those package plants fail, those residents will come to the town and need your help.
Yeah.
To what they call it rescue, to rescue them. And by rescue, I mean sending sewer out there.
Yeah.
Expensive and they can't afford it.
yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. So how we head that off by thinking about those kinds of uses in areas that are, maybe within a certain distance from existing utilities.
Gotcha.
Okay, good. Other comments about chapter 4?
Since we're in uses, did many people come to you last night after the meeting and ask for their property to be moved to a different color?
Actually, some people asked, but there weren't nearly as many as we would have
Okay,
thought.
okay.
And we had suggested those office hours as an opportunity for folks who might want to do that to come in and talk to us about it. And we'd had one person who actually did that very thing. They came in and talked to us about what we had suggested for the map and whether or not they agreed with that. And if not, what they thought would be appropriate. I think that concept is one that works and that we should continue to embrace and allow people to come in and find out about their zoning district, what's suggested. And, if they're looking for something else, help us understand why that makes sense in your situation. And let's be open to having that discussion. I think staff's committed to that, and so are we.
Since this is being aired publicly and we got people here, is there any chance that there'll be any outliers out there that staff and the community might not know about? That's gonna come to us after this and possibly say, well, I've had this business in my basement for 20 years but I ain't got no business license or anything. I
Right.
mean, am I just out to lunch here? I mean, I'm just trying to get the word out.
Understood.
But, where, is there an appeals process for that after the fact? Do they have a chance to reland if, they can make some kind of proof,
Mhm.
that they've been there?
Right. So, this is sort of a great segue into the next chapter,
Okay.
but I mean, let's deal with this issue about folks who maybe got caught unawares by this process and what are their options, right? It's not uncommon at all to have residents in a community after a process like this come forward and say, gosh, I was in the Philippines, or I didn't know anything about it, or I didn't understand what was happening, and now I've got this zoning district and this won't work for me. Can I change it? And the answer is yes. And we would suggest to you that the town consider some sort of 6-month period where folks can come in batches and request changes to be considered by the town and ultimately by this body after adoption, so that in case there's some that we missed, they've got a chance to kind of revisit that and have you guys reconsider it, and that be done for free, that you not have an application fee for that.
And as long as we've got the language in there, the state will abide by it and be okay with it.
Yes.
If it gets tested in court by neighbors.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, the other sort of question that you were talking about, you sort of wandered into this area about people who might be doing something that's not permitted or not allowed, or maybe won't be allowed under the new code. And so to that, I would say one of the strategies that we are suggesting the town consider in terms of dealing with this downzoning bill is basically granting amnesty to every use that exists today. If it's lawfully established, and if there is not a active notice of violation against them at the time that the code is adopted, that they be permitted to continue that as long as they want to, right? As long as it doesn't get any bigger, as long as it's not, there's no change that is made. In other words, you keep what you have. Okay, that's a central tenet of what we would suggest be done as part of this process. So if somebody has a home-based business that's happening and there's no violation in process with that right now, and the new code gets adopted, that business would be allowed to stay and to remain. Okay, for as long as that owner wanted to do that. Now, if they wanted to make a change, okay, after to that site, they would need to come into compliance with the rules. And that might mean having a use that wouldn't be allowed, or having a use that's allowed but is configured in ways that don't meet the standards, right? Now, we're suggesting a mechanism for that too, okay? And that mechanism is, if you've got a use that exists and you were blessed when this code changed and you were allowed to stay, and you want to make a change, but you can't comply with the rules after you've made this change that you'd like to make, then what do? There's 3 choices. Choice number 1 is that you pursue a variance, okay, which you may get and you may not. The variance kind of turns on a hardship question. Let's say you can't get a variance, or you don't want to go for a variance. There's another option. You can ask for a conditional rezoning, right? And we've created a process that can be tailored very narrowly. So it's not some big, $100,000 concept plan thing that you have to go through and all of that. It's a manageable process for, I just want to be sure that my son's auto use, I could put a compressor in the building, right? Something small. That conditional rezoning process is there for you. But let's say you don't want to do a conditional rezoning, too much red tape, too much time, too much trouble, don't want to do that. Okay. Then you can ask for the ability to be non-conforming. Okay. And what that would allow you to do is to have that change on your site. Okay. You have the use that you had before, plus the change that you wanted to make, right? To the extent, there's some nuance in here. I can't use this to put a use on the land that's not allowed in the district. Can't do that. But I can use this process if I don't meet the setbacks, or I don't meet some kind of site feature that I need to meet. I can use this consent process as a way to authorize that kind of development. But in trade, what I give for that is that I am now non-conforming. Okay. And what that means is if I ever stop doing what I'm doing for 180 days or longer, I can't restart it. If the use or building that I have burns down or, is blown over in a storm or whatever, or is damaged beyond 51% of the assessed value, I can only put it back in ways that comply with the rules in place at the time. Okay. So there's a trade-off there, but this is a fair and balanced way to allow people to keep what they have, right? Create a path for them to change it with a variety of different options that include this ability to, reach this change as long as it's allowed in the district without having to rezone, without having to get a variance. But when you do that, you have to recognize that this is non-conforming and that as the landowner, am the person who's making it non-conforming, not the town. Why are we doing it that way? Because you can't make it non-conforming like you could on June 13th of 2024. Now you can't. So that's the process that's included in this strategy. And I'd love to tell you that we've done this in a million places and it's worked beautifully, but I can't, because this is brand new territory for everybody. To my knowledge, nobody in the state has dealt with this new law yet. I think you might be the first.
And it's because the state legislatures and what they brought down on all 100 counties.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
All 700 governments. Okay. Did that answer your question about people who are out there today? Okay. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the nonconformities chapter. Again, this is where our strategy for dealing with the downzoning law lives. Remember that amnesty for everybody. Okay. If you got it today, you get to keep it tomorrow. Okay. As long as there's not an open violation act against you, right? If you don't have a notice of violation, then you can go forward. If you do have a violation, then we need to talk about it, but that's a case by case kind of thing for us to manage as we move through this. You get to keep it forever. If you want to make any changes, you need to come into compliance, and there's 3 paths for you to reach compliance. Okay. Now, the non-conforming standards, they are making changes to your non-conforming sign rules. Your non-conforming sign rules do not comply with state requirements. The state requirements allow non-conforming signage to remain. It can be removed and replaced. It can be relocated. And that's what the state has said. Your current standards aren't structured that way. If the business changes, you have to get rid of it. If it gets damaged, you have to get rid of it. The state has preempted us, and now we have a different set of rules for non-conforming signage. So I wanted to be sure that you knew that. That is in there. We have added some provisions that allow us to balance between new signs that I want to add, right, and my existing non-conforming sign. Okay, and the town has now, as it always has had, the ability to buy that sign if it wants that sign removed. But short of that, the sign gets to stay, if that makes some sense. Okay, those are the nonconformities provisions. We've tried to make them very simple. We've tried to recognize the issues that could happen. Can I expand a nonconformity? Can I change from one nonconforming use to another? What happens if my nonconforming building gets burns up or gets flooded or blown over? How's that handled? All right. But the thing to remember is, until you've asked to become nonconforming and you've given consent to become nonconforming, you're not nonconforming. Okay. So when this ordinance gets adopted, you conform, you're fine as long as you go forward. You make a change, you got to come into compliance. One of the options, if you can't reach compliance, is to become nonconforming. When you become nonconforming, these rules about cessation, abandonment, casualty damage, they kick in. Okay. The last chapter is the violations chapter. It's our enforcement provisions. A couple of things to mention. These provisions are not punitive. They don't seek punishment. They seek compliance, right? We've added more clarity to the standards that are here, how the process works, and what the remedies are available to the town to address these kinds of issues. But most of this material is really set down for us by the state. So, there's nothing really novel in here other than what the state has already told us, this is how you structure your enforcement provision, the state or the courts. Okay. That's the quick overview of the chapters. And I realize there's a lot of material and we've gone through it very quickly. There was a question last night. It was my favorite question, and that was why? Why are we doing this? There's the whole downzoning thing, right? That is an issue for us, but there's some reasons why we're doing this that predate the downzoning bill. And that is the comprehensive plan, right? The comprehensive plan that Mills River adopted, that said, these are, this is the community that we would like to be in the future. And those are some of the policies that relate to Module 1 that are inside this plan. And so I worry that folks are like, here comes this guy from Durham who is telling us what to do or how to live. We're taking our cues from the policy guidance that the Making Mills River plan set out for us. There are a lot of choices, and we're absolutely all in for the discussion about how we solve these problems or even whether we solve these problems. But the shopping list of suggestions and recommendations that we're making are to address the policy guidance that's in place.
And I will say, Chad, that those responses to that comprehensive plan come back overwhelmingly one-sided in a lot of factors.
Mhm.
Anybody wants to argue that needs to look at them. They was overwhelmingly one-sided on
Mhm.
the way the district should look, the size of the properties, and so forth and so on.
Sure.
So, I understand what you said right there, 100%, and I'd have to have your back on that was what we heard. But this here, in saying that, will turn that comprehensive plan into law. So keep that in mind. So make sure when you said it, you meant it, and that's really what you wanted, and you didn't have your buddy standing by there when you was putting it on your car for them to get data.
Right.
Because it's getting serious about it now. So you're gonna have to make sure that this is really what you want.
Right. I couldn't agree more. Well
Okay.
said. Well said. Here are the project goals. I'm not going to cover these. We've talked about them every single time that you see me. And I say this every time you see me, I go over these goals. Here's the 7 goals. And they fit nicely with what your comprehensive plan's calling for, except for creating a user-friendly code. And I totally get that, what's a user-friendly code may differ. People may have different opinions about that. I certainly understand it. There's a lot of material here. There is, in some cases, some complexity here. We needed to put some stuff on the table for you guys to look at. And now there's some stuff on the table, we can start talking about it. Instead of just talking in the abject about ideas and concepts, here's some stuff on the page. Maybe this is right, maybe it's not right. And that's okay. If we didn't put it down on the page, you wouldn't even know what we were trying to reach. So we're not married to this. This is here for you guys to react to. We hope to have this conversation continue, and there'll be some changes, and that's normal. And, what are those changes? We don't know yet. That's still, we're still having that discussion, and we'll continue to have that discussion for the next 6 months.
I have a question on this chapter 4, and there's a lot of land use rules in here. And how did they come up with these?
These are regulations that we have used in other rural communities. Some of these may fit for Mills River, some of them may not. And you may say to us, guys, why do you have so many rules about outdoor storage? Or why are there so many rules about vehicle washing and detailing uses? That's a very valid question. And it may well be that those aren't appropriate for Mills River. But it's a lot easier for us to put them down on the page and have you tell us take them out than it is for us to add them in after we've gotten down the road.
Modify them to fit our standards.
Right.
Is there going to be a chance for public input for the public to look at these?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I want to know. And there's some in here that I know we don't have the definitions for these, and we need that.
Yes, ma'am.
Because some of these, you look at them and you like,
What is that?
that you can't even enforce that.
Mhm.
I mean, not here.
Sure.
And over here, there's some for agricultural uses, prohibited is concentrated animal feeding operations.
Yes, ma'am.
Um, you would have to explain the definition of that to me because when I had horses, I fed them all in one place.
Right. So this is happily for us, it's defined under state statute. These are industrial feedlots where animals are brought to be maintained for the short period before they're slaughtered. That's what a confined animal
Oh,
feedlot is.
Well, that explains it and that makes it make more sense.
Sure.
Because I'm reading this and I'm thinking, are people gonna have to spread them out to feed now? You know, I don't understand all this. So
Right.
the definitions
That
would
would be
help,
very helpful.
but I definitely want the public to have input on this because it's so broad.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean,
There's a lot here.
according to this, you know, not to sound harsh or anything, but I almost feel like, well, do I need to ask if I can hang my clothes out on the clothesline? You know,
Right.
and we're still rural. We're still, I want this to be something that we can support and use because we need it.
Yes, ma'am.
So we've got to make it work for us, but it's not going to be us making decisions. You know, it's got to be them giving us the input that we can support.
Right. Right. Agree. And believe it or not, as crazy as it sounds, there are residential subdivisions that have deed restrictions and CCRs that ban you from having clotheslines. And
Absolutely.
we have written standards in these kinds of documents that basically abolish those deed restrictions. The state has stepped in and said you can't stop people from drying their clothes outside, which seems crazy, but that's the world that we live in. But I couldn't agree with you more about the public input. Yes, ma'am. And this isn't going to work if the public doesn't get involved. And as much as I would or Karen would like to walk door to door and knock on everybody's door and spend 4 or 5 hours going over the document with them, we can't. So people have to come and inform themselves and share their point of view. That's really, really important. And one of the things that's unfortunate about the whole project is this timeline that's been put on us by the General Assembly, because it compresses a process in ways that's very difficult for us to deal with. And there's deep concern, and it's justified. With respect to this MU district, if you don't get it solved now, you may not be able to ever get it solved. And the ramifications to the community character, if that's not solved, are pretty serious. So anyway, that's everything that I wanted to. Let me just talk about next steps. Can you scroll down 1, 2, go to the very end slide and make that big. I just wanted to share this information. Thank you. This is a schedule. And there's a couple of things that I wanted to point out to you. And boy, someday we'll hopefully get the right schedule. We'll be back before you guys on January 21st and 22nd. We will be back in town. And I'd like for everybody to mark their calendars. We would love to have another open house. And maybe we can think about some other ways for people to learn about this and share their points of view with us in ways that are easier for them. Whether that's, webinars or some kind of accelerated office hours, or we do some kind of rolling presentation where people can come when it works for them. I don't know. We're open to this idea of making it as easy as possible for people to come and share their opinion. So I wanted you to know that we'll be back on January 21st and 22nd. You will have the rest of the material in this draft ordinance the day after Christmas. Okay. And then we'll spend the next 6 months looking at it and adjusting it and making it work and fit for Mills River.
And the draft ordinances will be available at Imagine Mills River.
Yes, all of the draft work product is
Mhm.
is at the unfortunate name, Imagine.
It's
Mills
good.
River.
It's a good name. So imagine what it'll be if we don't.
Right, right. Maybe we'll put that as a tag.
I'll say that again.
And
So
I,
if I
you-
may, oh, so sorry,
ahead.
Councilmember Kimball. Oh, I was just gonna also mention that on imaginemillsriver.com, there's a place that people can put their email addresses in. And so when, as information becomes available, that email blast goes out as we get ready for, these meetings that come up, as we start having, more and more public engagement opportunities. That's kind of the one-stop shop. But you don't necessarily have to visit it for the information every time.
Right.
You will get notified of when information
It's posted.
is posted and when those opportunities are there. And then
Right.
we hope that then you would, as you're interested in it, you would go in and then go to imaginemillsriver.com to be able to see that information.
Correct, correct. 200 or so of your neighbors have already signed up on the website, which frankly is, you should really be applauded. That's great. Most communities don't get that kind of participation. The meeting that was conducted last night was one of the best attended, Unified Development Ordinance meetings I've ever done in 30 years of this. So I'm encouraged by it. And we want to lean into that and embrace that and have more of that conversation.
We're-
Councilmember Kimball, yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go.
No, you
I'm gonna finish this up, so y'all just wanna.
No, I was just gonna say, you mentioned the time frame for this, and yes, it is a huge task to undertake in what we were given, but it's also a great opportunity for the fact that we're only limited by downzoning.
Mhm.
So if we always have the advantage, if we're not sure about something, to take the conservative approach or the cautious approach,
Mhm.
because we can always open it up
That's right.
as far as restrictions
You-
later on.
you-
We
you-
can have those discussions to
You-
unrestrict it later on.
You can always you can always increase development potential. It's very difficult to decrease it.
Well, we'll never be able to decrease it unless the state changes their code.
Or you get consent from 7,500 people.
Yeah.
In consensus at one time.
Right. At one time. Right.
Right.
So, yeah, I think that's the thing, is that we need to remember as a community, as we're having these discussions, yes, there is a time frame, but we can continue it
Mhm.
past the deadline.
Right.
But we can loosen them up as.
That's right. That's right. But we can't make them more
Correct.
stringent.
So it's easier to err on the side of caution.
It's easier to err on the side of more regulation
Yes.
now and remove it later.
Correct.
The last public forum that we had at the school was on zoning. So the next time y'all come back in January and you have hours available, what are the topics of that you're looking for?
What a great question. We're going to talk about standards next time. Okay, so standards mean parking, lighting, landscaping, stormwater, open space, owner association provisions, those kinds of things, the site features and site configuration kinds of aspects. We had talked about maybe some design standards for multifamily, right? Maybe some design standards for some kinds of non-residential development. So that would be part of that discussion. And that's our topic for our next visit is that chapter 6. If you want a preview of it, you can open the annotated outline, which, by the way, is the shell of the UDO. Okay. Every section that is going to be in the UDO is already in that annotated outline with a few paragraphs about what we expect to be in those sections. So if you want to get a jump on it, have a look at the annotated outline, which is on the website, and you can get some kind of sense about what direction we think we're headed in.
Oh, you got Sandra?
We live in a place where people do care, and I'm hoping we get humongous turnout
Yes,
for
ma'am.
this. And they're pretty good when you go to tell them, you need to pay attention to this, you need to look. We can pack a room.
Yeah, you're right.
So-
That's very true. You've proved that.
Keep that up
Yes, ma'am.
through this whole process.
Couldn't agree more.
So, couple questions. Um, Advice from you on this one and staff. Would it be a possibility for us to print flyers to pass on to the two elementary schools to get the word out about these next events, the workshops that we might have another one at the school or here? Would that be even appropriate? But it would ensure that it would go to X number of homes that we're definitely located here in a book back kind of form that the parents are probably going to be looking in and get it. I think that's going to reach as many people as these postcards.
Well-
Because they're gonna dig in there for the homework sometime that week and at least get a chance to get their hands on it.
I get
And
flyers
learn
all the
about it.
time
Huh?
I get flyers all the time from my son's school, like community flyers.
Okay, so
Yeah,
they do.
they do it all the
anyway.
time.
Okay,
And
So-
we can get them out to the churches too.
and then for staff, have we got money budgeted in there for such a thing?
The budget is set by council.
Yes.
And so if it is a council priority, we will be able to determine, an
Approach the
adequate
public
budget for it.
forum.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Anyway, that's an inside joke. Let's see. The other thing I got is I want everybody to understand here that, 5 of us are ultimately going to make this decision. We are. We're going to have to. And please believe me, this is not going to be easy no matter what. I've announced my retirement from this deal, but others are going to be seeking re-elections either the next election or 2 years beyond that. This is going to hit pretty close to home for the campaign of the next election, possibly. So let's keep in mind, even with these planning board members, they're giving us their due diligence for nothing. They're volunteers. Our staff is working extra time and we didn't have to do this, I'm sure. I found that out last night. I kind of figured it was a thing that the UDO was going to have to be done at some point, but I found out last night, not so much. But we're into this. We paid these people. They're doing their due diligence. They're producing, staff's producing, planning board's producing. We're going to see it through, but let's get all the possible input we can get on this. And let's please leave out of here, as I've always preached, being good neighbors. We're just trying to look after the best of everyone. We don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. There's not a soul up here, I can tell you, would hurt your feelings on purpose for nothing in the world. They come more out by helping you. And that's all we're trying to do here. So if you think you're getting pinched between a rock, reach out to us, of course. Don't be bashful. We talk. Reach out to these consultants when they come in, and staff is always available. Some of these questions I can't answer, but I'm a little timid to push them off to staff because I ain't sure they got it yet either. I try to steer them toward these folks.
Mhm.
But we're getting down now to where everybody's getting somewhat educated on this. And I feel like we're all feeling a little more comfortable with the situation at hand. And it's getting more knowledgeable day by day now.
Mhm.
So in saying that, we've got some resources to pull from, but please reach out to your neighbors. Let's talk to the principals at the school and see if they're okay with what we're thinking about doing here. And I think from middle school on up, unless staff or folk in here tell me different, I don't know that that's necessarily going to hit the refrigerator, but the elementary school I think could. So, and it will hit generally right here. So that's just another opportunity I see to get a cheap method to get some people on board to look at this. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you guys, and I look forward to our next visit.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Please be careful going home tomorrow when you leave.
Thank you.
I will give a reminder that they will be in here tomorrow from 9 till 12. So anybody here or anybody online that would like to come and have a chat with these folk, they will be here till 12 noon tomorrow, and then we're going to cut them loose. They've got to get back to, he said, Durham. All right. So does anybody need a quick break? I don't even know what time it is. Does anybody have a time?
8:34.
8:34. Is everybody good? Move on? All right, we'll move on. Moving on to C, discussion and adoption of our 2026 town meeting schedule.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. So before you, this is just an item that comes up annually at the end of the calendar year before we plan for the next one. Just to plan that calendar for, important meetings going through 2026. And so one of the things I'm going to ask our town clerk, Patty Brown, to go through is a couple of other questions about certain meetings, such as our budgetary meetings, as well as the roundtable meetings that council asked staff to look at around the UDO process. They're not currently built into the schedule, but we thought this was also an appropriate time to get your thoughts and opinions on those meetings as well. Patty?
So each December, council adopts a meeting schedule for themselves and for the, boards. Your, schedule has the, regular meeting schedules. One thing to note is because next year is an election year, we did figure in an organizational meeting. That way you can just have that and then you have your regular meeting in December. And another thing to note is the planning board. We talked to the chair and they were not interested in meeting on election day, so we moved their meeting back 2 weeks. But other than that, your meeting schedule falls on the regular days. In addition, in your packet is special meetings that we are proposing. These dates are subject to change, but one thing I wanted to note is you had mentioned wanting to have a roundtable for the UDO. And so we're proposing that you do that next Thursday, December 18th. So if you're open to everything and you like the meeting schedule, I ask that you adopt the meeting schedule as presented or suggest modifications. And then I ask that you go ahead and call for a special meeting on December 18th for your roundtable and call for a special meeting on February 17th for your visioning session.
So I got one question. I thought I seen that he presented, they would be here, is it the 14th and 15th? But he verbally said 20th and 21st. So I don't know that us meeting before them again is gonna be such a necessity as possibly after, if possible.
So as of right now in the packet, we do have December 18th. Again, if there was feeling from this council that there needed to be more discussion afterwards next week, so we could gather feedback and then pass it along
Okay,
to to the consultants. But again, this is completely up to you all. We do have one again scheduled then potentially for January 29th, which would be
Okay.
after the next one. So
Okay.
we kind of tried to plan it strategically around
I see.
gathering that information.
I got you.
So-
I'm with you now.
If I understand, the roundtable is for us as council to discuss questions that we have after reviewing the draft,
Mhm.
to get those questions together and get to the consultants. It's not necessarily a public input meeting, or is it?
So I'll let Patty answer this more completely. I'll just say generally, the reason why those are not built into this schedule is because we would ask for you all to set those as special meetings. So one, the only item of topic would be around the UDO. And also by state law, you have to have at least one meeting within the month to have public comment. So that would be up to council consideration whether or not you would like to have that public comment period as a part of that as well.
And I'm not saying we wouldn't want public comment.
Or
It's
just to
just
set on the
that
calendar.
it's not the same thing as the meeting we had last night. you
Oh,
know,
yes.
No,
Right, it's not a typical meeting.
no, it would be a
But-
special meeting for you to talk amongst yourselves about the UDO.
Okay,
And it would be up to you whether you allowed public comment or not. It's more or less like a workshop for you.
sure.
Mhm. Thank you for that. Yeah, thank you for that clarification. Yeah, so we are looking at the potential of another larger forum that happened
Sure.
last evening as well. We just hadn't gotten to that point based off of the feedback that we've gotten over the last few days.
I had that we were having a meeting, a UDO meeting on the December 19th.
So on December 19th, we have the strategic planning committee meeting.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Everybody okay with it now?
I would,
If so, I entertain a motion to adopt as presented.
So that'll be December 18th.
Oh.
But it's an evening meeting.
If I may,
Sure,
Councilmember Good, I'm
clarify.
so sorry to interrupt. There are a couple of different types of motions.
you
that
got
could
two
happen.
motions, yeah.
Yes, so it could be three motions.
I got it.
Yes, so there's one about the calendar as is on the left hand, on the actual calendar itself to set. Yes, ma'am. And then if council so chooses to set special meetings based off of these dates provided.
So I make a motion to adopt the 2026 meeting schedule as presented.
Second.
All right, I got a first, a second. Any discussion on it? There none?
This don't have the times on there. Is that up for discussion? Or is this just the dates? We'll discuss the times in a minute.
So historically, at least from my understanding, this calendar has not included the times. The times have historically, oh, sorry. So the times are at the top, actually. Thank you, Patty. See, that's why she's sitting beside me. She's just gonna elbow me.
Oh,
The times are there at 6:30 PM. It says 9, and then the rest of the times for those committees. Council can always change the time of those meetings. That would be appropriate at this time. Usually we always talk about it every 2 years as part of the organizational meeting after an election.
Any more discussion?
Yeah, I can't get here before 6:30.
Say that again.
I can't get here before 6:30.
do they need to go on till 10:30?
I don't think we control that too much unless we just do it the night of. I mean, anything could be tabled or recessed to a later date, but I think all those decisions will be made concurrent on what you're dealing with at the time,
Okay.
to be honest with you. Any more discussion? All right, I got a first, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none? Okay.
So make a motion to call a special meeting on December 18th at 6:30 for the UDO workshop.
Second.
I got a first, second. Any discussion on that one? Hearing none? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none?
I make the motion to call a special meeting on February 17th for the council visioning.
And I'll second.
All right, I got first, second on the vision. Any discussion on that one?
And that was when?
There's probably a special time off to the side.
Oh, February 17th?
February 17th.
Okay.
Everybody good with that now? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Got through them. All right, we'll move on to personnel. My gentleman's been here a while. Would it be appropriate for me to move him up? Would the council be okay with that? To get the audit done and so he can get out of here. He's heard a lot of municipal
Yeah.
stuff. I'd like to see him get on his merry way. He does us a favor, so I'd like to do him one. If we could, we're gonna move E up and we're gonna do our audit presentation.
You need a motion?
to
Just do
move
it.
Mhm.
I make a motion, we switch item D and E as far as order and do item E before item D.
Second.
Well, I got a first, a second. Any discussion on what we just did? No. Okay, Julie will still be attending. All right. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? None.
Well, good evening.
Howdy.
Thank you for moving me up one spot. I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
I do believe he would have enjoyed the personnel policy update, however.
I've got a,
Listen, I was invested in this. I may come to one of those workshops. I live in Weaverville.
just call him in the morning, get an update. You got his phone number.
All right. Well, like I said, good evening. My name's Travis Keever with Global Killian CPA Group. We're here to talk about the FY25 financial statement audit that was recently completed. We appreciate you allowing us to serve as auditors. It's the second year we've done the town's audit. Been a good relationship with the town, I think, so far. We appreciate Julie's hard work in completing the audit. Her and her staff are very cooperative. It's a lot of information and documentation to pull together to do this, and they've got their real job on top of it. So we appreciate their help. We completed the audit on November 10th, 2025 for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2025. We issued 2 different reports that are included in those financial statements, which have been uploaded to the LGC. We're just waiting on their final blessing or seal of approval. And then we'll get the printed copies and get them out to you. But within those statements, there's 2 reports that we issue. One is on the financial statement portion of the audit. We issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, or a clean opinion. That means that we believe the financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And that's a clean opinion. That's what people want when they have an audit. So that's the financial statement part of it. We also issue a report called a Yellow Book report. It's specific to government auditing standards. We review your internal controls to the extent necessary to plan and perform the financial statement audit. So we review the controls that are most pertinent to the numbers in the financial statements. We do this in a number of ways. We test a sample of expenditures to make sure purchase order policies are followed, make sure the expenditures are approved by authorized individuals, that budgetary authority exists, that invoices are coded to a correct budget code. We also test a sample of payroll transactions. We make sure that employees that get paid are actual employees of the town and they're getting paid for the rate that was approved by their supervisor and working and paid for the hours that were approved by the supervisor. And then we also conduct walkthroughs with key personnel in the finance department, tax collection and others to make sure that a system of checks and balances appear to be in place as it relates to the county or the town's control over their financial information. So out of all that, we noted no material weaknesses in internal control, no significant deficiencies in internal control. That's kind of the two categories where if there were any deficiencies, we'd have to put them in one of those two categories. We found none. We also review your compliance with applicable laws and regulations. For example, the budgetary statutes that you have to comply with. We noted no material non-compliance with any laws or regulations. In the past, or at least last year when we were here, you guys had a couple of what the state refers to now as financial performance indicators of concern. That's not a finding. It's LGC sets some financial benchmarks. We compare your numbers to those. If anything's kind of out of tolerance on those benchmarks, we have to tell you about it. There were none of those this year, so no response will be necessary to provide to the LGC. Am I aiming this in the right direction? There we go. We did have to perform a state single audit this year. The state requires if you receive a certain amount of state funding, if you go over a certain threshold, which right now is $500,000, you have to perform what's called a single audit on that money, which is kind of like it sounds, is like a little miniature audit of its own. We had to do that this year on the funds that you guys received from the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund or the Part F money. You had two different components to that. You received $500,000 this year as kind of a reimbursement on some expenses related to the Johnston land purchase last year. And then you got $263,000 for some playground improvements, which wasn't received until FY26, but the funds were spent in FY25. So we went ahead and included that in the single audit also. For that one, we issued a clean opinion on compliance with the significant terms of the grant and on control over compliance. So that's the report that gets issued with that one. So to sum all that up, clean audit opinion, no internal control weaknesses, and a clean single audit. That's about as good a report as I can give as far as that goes. This is a pie chart of your general fund revenues. Of course, ad valorem taxes makes up by far the biggest chunk of it. Then you've got your intergovernmental section is the red one at just over $3 million. And for the town, that's your state sales tax, your utility sales tax, your PAL bill money. And this year, the $500,000 in Part F is included in there. Then the two smaller amounts are investment earnings and then other, which includes kind of everything else. This is a revenue comparison to last year. You can see pretty much everything's the same except for that intergovernmental column. That's just the Part F money. Makes the blue bar a little bit higher. Everything else is kind of in line year over year. Same data on expenditures. The biggest chunk of money for you guys is in the public safety function. Of course, that's the contracts with Mills River Fire for about 2.4 million, Henderson County Sheriff's Office for about $1 million to provide police and fire service. Second is your general government function. That's admin, tax collection, finance, legal, IT, planning, sort of all the departments that operate out of this building. Third would be your culture and recreation is the financial statement function. That includes the operating expenses for the park and then a little bit for the library. And then, of course, you've got debt service this year of about $295,000 on the note for the Johnston property. And same kind of year over year comparison. And again, all of the expenditures are in line with last year, except for the culture and rec. The Johnston property purchases is in that. So that's why it's way skewed from last year. So fund balance, your total fund balance increased during the year about $1.5 million. It went from 7.7 million to 9.2 in fund balance. The state likes to measure a thing they call available fund balance, which is the gray chart there. That went from 7.1 to 8.5. Available fund balance is basically the cash in the bank minus the bills you haven't paid at the end of the year. So your cash minus your accounts payable, that's available fund balance. The state says that's a real true measure of what you have available to spend. So they like to measure that even more than the total. But you can see they both kind of track in the same way. So this is another metric the state likes. It's fund balance available, which is that number from the previous slide, is a percentage of net expenditures. Your chart looks a little funny this year again because of the Johnston land purchase. That was considered an expenditure in the prior year. So the fund balance as a percent of expenditures, your expenditures were way higher in FY24, so it drove that percent way down. But you can see the red line is the municipal average. Most municipalities in North Carolina have expenditures. It's about 70% of their available fund balance. The town has fund balance of around 140% of their expenditures. So it's about, close to a year and a half worth of operating expenses in fund balance. So that's a good, healthy number. And the last slide is a little data on property tax collection. You can see from 23 to 24, the jump because of the revaluation. The numbers from 24 to 25 stayed about the same. Collection rate ticked up just a hair from 99.56 to 99.64. That's a A+ collection rate for what we see. So that
My
is,
good neighbors.
yeah, everybody's paying like they're supposed to.
Right.
That's all I've got. I'm happy to take questions if anybody has any.
Questions? Your contract with us is for a year at a time. I can't remember out offhand.
Yeah, when we do the bid, it's 3 years.
Yeah.
The second and third years have to be renewed every year. So
I got you. I got you.
1 year contract.
So moving forward, do you see any outliers with us potentially as a community building this park? Are we gonna have to do anything different than we've been doing? Or do you feel comfortable just moving forward the way we have been?
We don't see anything
Okay,
that would give us any pause. Again, the town's got a good system of internal control. You've got a healthy fund balance. You've got good staff.
got it.
And if you've got those three things, you can kind of get through most issues that pop up. So
Appreciate it. Any other questions? Hearing none, thank you for being here.
thank you all.
Thank you.
If I may, just real quick, Mayor and Council. I just want to thank Travis and his entire team for this. I'll just say, there are many things that I'm proud of. One of the thing that I'm most proud of is an audit that comes back clean. Because we take fiscal responsibility to heart and making sure that we're being good stewards of the taxpayer dollar. And I just really want to thank Julie, and I want to thank the entire staff for their hard work, making sure that we continue to have the highest standards when it comes to ensuring strong controls around the taxpayers' money. And so I just want to thank them for that. Thank you.
And we thank you for that.
Yes. I get a motion to accept the audit, please.
Okay. Anybody up for it? Got it?
I'll make a motion that we accept the audit.
I'll
Okay.
second.
First, second, any discussion on it? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, free to leave. Thank you. All right, moving back now to our agenda modified, personal policy update from our manager.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I would note that Travis was interested, but I think that he's decided to hit the road now. So no, this is this item is coming before you by council request. So earlier in the year, as a reminder, in September, late September, council adopted a new personnel policy. It was the first true update to the personnel policy really since it was created. And so as a part of that, there was one item in there, which was parental involvement leave. And so what, as a part of that conversation, there was there was a request from council to look into community service leave and whether or not there's an opportunity for those who may not have children to also be able to have hours of equal value for giving back to the community in some way. So we've been working closely with our partners at Craft HR, looking at other policies, how they try to mirror that, and there were examples of that. And before we use a modified version, which essentially states that that it would update the parental involvement leave to have both parental involvement by state law as well as community service, 4 hours. It can be used either way, and it can be interchangeable, right? Of the 4 hours each. One of the other things that I'm requesting for consideration is at an adoption date of January 1, 2026. The rationale for that is when we first brought this to council around parental involvement leave, it was our understanding at the time through North Carolina law that was 4 hours per child of the employee. Since then, we've had more conversations with the state to determine that it's 4 hours total for employee, regardless of the number of children. And so for that reason, we are going into the holidays. My recommendation is that if there were already plans for those employees who have children to go to those types of holiday events, that they're not punished due to that change and that it would just start effective January 1, 2026.
Discussion. Discussion. Entertain a motion.
I make a motion to adopt the language presented with an effective date of January 1, 2026.
Look for a second.
Second.
Got a first and second. Any more discussion? I will say that I hope staff's able to use this if you've got children. That's what it's there for. Use it if you can. Youngins will be grown before you know it, and they'll appreciate you going.
And if you don't have children, you can volunteer 4 hours if you choose.
There you have it.
Try it.
With that being said, I got a first, second. How about a vote? All in favor? Any opposed? Hearing none.
And if you don't have anywhere to volunteer at, I'm more than less you can volunteer at my company.
I would be remiss. I would be remiss if I didn't take this moment to also say, I really do thank council for coming forward with that recommendation. It's a recommendation that once we heard it, we absolutely embraced and we wanted to make sure that happens. And it's having a culture that appreciates community service and having that built within the personnel policy, I believe is also a major recruitment tool for future because of the care that we want to take care of our staff. So thank you.
Okay, other business. Any other business? Nope, nope. All right, I need a motion to adjourn our regular meeting.
Make a motion to adjourn our regular meeting.
Brian, then a second.
So moved.
Sandra. Any discussion on the adjournment? Nope. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. We're out of that. Need one to go into our business meeting.
Do we want a break?
I'd love a break.
All right.
I just don't keep going.
All right, we'll take a 5-minute break and then we'll come back and we'll move on.
Go up and have a snack.
Okay, we're back up and ready to go. Need a motion to go into our business meeting, please.
Make a motion to go in the business meeting.
Jeff, I need a second.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Sandra. Any discussion on what we're doing here? This business meeting? Nope. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Here none. We'll move straight into our first item, our Helene Recovery Fund and part of grant for the
Yeah.
boat launch.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm going to kick it over here to Nicole here in a second, and Mike's going to be joining us as well. So our Parks and Rec Director and then our Planning and Zoning Director. But I just want to give a little bit of an overview of what this looks like. So, as council's well aware, and I know the community is aware, the park sustained, quite a bit of damage in certain areas, due to Hurricane Helene. And so, one of the elements that we've been trying to balance through all of this is the funds that we have available to be able to address those, and then trying to mirror those as best as possible with other grant funding opportunities that exist. And as we've been working through this process, in fact, as Nicole can attest, we were hit actually quite quickly with a few different grant opportunities in succession. So we know that the state as a whole has been looking at opportunities to help communities like ourselves. As council has given us direction on the moving forward with the reimbursement strategy for the Northern Loop, obviously that's going to take funds. We've already started working through that process. In fact, we had field assessment groups going out here to start that work already. But we want to be good fiscal stewards, as I talked about earlier. And so one of the grant opportunities that we're looking at now is a PARTIF grant, which we're very well aware of the PARTIF grant opportunities, but specifically around Helene Recovery Fund. And so that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. There are some nuances that are a part of that we're looking for guidance from council. Nicole is going to dive into all of the specifics here, and then Mike's going to provide you with some more details around some of the concerns.
Presentation. But yeah, as Matt said, we have been working day in, day out with FEMA to try to get as much funding as possible for our recovery, but we are also looking at every opportunity. The state's been a great support, and there has been a kind of a flurry of grant opportunities coming our way. We've already applied for one that's been submitted. We haven't heard back from. This is another opportunity, as well as a few on our radar coming up in the next few weeks to help supplement money we may or may not get from FEMA. And so we're really just looking at all the opportunities we can to make good use of taxpayer dollars while getting our park not only back to what it was, but better than what it was. We just tested it.
The others had some luck pointing it backwards, I noticed.
There we go.
Okay, so first, just a little overview of what the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund, Helene Recovery Fund is. So you all are very familiar with the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund. We were able to get money for the property acquisition next store, subsection of that grant, also the accessibility for parks grant that we got for our playground. So this is a special pot of money that the state of North Carolina has put aside specifically for the county, only for the counties that were affected by Hurricane Helene. Which obviously includes Henderson County. And it's administered through North Carolina Parks and Recreation Trust Fund, just like all the other grants. But it's specifically to support repair, replacement, and resilience-focused upgrades and additions to damaged outdoor facilities. And this is it's gonna be very competitive. I mean, we were very lucky in our damage, and you've seen how much money it's costing us. I mean, there is millions and millions of dollars of park damage across the Helene affected regions. But this is also focused for a little bit smaller communities too. So if you have over a certain population size, you're not eligible for this grant, which helps us a little bit. But it's also, they posted this grant, how was it, maybe 2 weeks ago. We had a webinar that kind of gave us the rundown of what this grant is, and the application is due January 28th, which is a very quick turnaround time. You may remember from other Parks and Recreation Trust Fund applications that there was a whole lot of work and requirements going into it. They have pared that down. It is still a bit of work, but not nearly as extensive as a traditional Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grant. So why does this grant matter? I mean, it's again, so this is just like a traditional Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grant would provide 50% match for relief for storm-related park repairs. This grant is a rare opportunity. This is an opportunity for us to, again, not just repair what we had, but to fill in needs that we know we had before the storm. One of that being ADA accessibility. We can look at things like expanded parking, which we know is always short down there, and it gives us an opportunity to add additional recreational amenities. Whereas if we just go the traditional FEMA route, we get to replace what was there. We're gonna have the same problems we had before, and this just gives us another outlet or opportunity to be able to look at that. This project really aligns with some of our town priorities. We've been going through our strategic planning and a lot of our goals regarding accessibility and safety. And it just gives us the ability to give a high quality facility and without fully burdening our taxpayers.
So with that being said, if we do more than, is that automatically gonna kick us out of eligibility for FEMA or not?
It doesn't.
Okay.
And so this grant will allow us to do more, but if we get FEMA money, so we can't use grant money to do things that FEMA is going to cover, right? So this is going to be, but if we get money from FEMA, we can help use that as our match. So, so things like expanding the parking lot, and when you see some of the plans, some of those other additions, that's what our grant money is going to be used for. But if we get FEMA money, if this plan, as we submitted it, was FEMA was just going to cover it, then it wouldn't be an eligible application.
Okay.
So, but because we are adding new features, making it better accessible, FEMA's not going to pay for those things,
Okay.
but we can make it better and then still get some of that FEMA money.
If I may, Nicole, just real briefly, I picture this as they're running parallel with each other. So we are still working with FEMA specifically on the kayak launch, which is broken out of the Northern Loop repair, trying to get to what that cost would be for pre-disaster condition. So that is running in tandem with this. And I know I'm sure Nicole is going to mention a little bit later on about the timeline for how long it takes to to start building with the part of funds. But again, going through the FEMA route at the same time, if we get it, then we can leverage those funds for that project to improve it because they're matching funds
Okay.
for the part of.
So just so everybody knows, just kind of what the damage we're dealing with at our boat launch. So there's a lot of erosion and undermining completely under the concrete footing of that boat launch. What's kind of the bigger issue around the boat launch is there was a whole geological shift of the river. So the river essentially no longer connects to the boat launch area. So that's a big issue. So even putting it back like as is, we are still not we're not going to reach it's not going to be functional anymore.
Only time you can use it during a flood.
Right.
And you
Yeah.
can't move the river back.
Correct. And moving the river back is just not a good option for us. So the site just currently is not safe for public use with the undermining footage. So we would we're going to have to completely do reconstruction and realignment of the boat launch to be able to restore its functionality. We had some damage to the parking lot as well. So that is also going to have to be worked on, whether we get this grant or decide to move forward with this plan or not. And I just want to, again, I think I mentioned it already, but the pre-storm boat launch already prevented accessible use for people with limited mobility. And so this is something we would really want to try to fix as part of this project. So the focus of this project is to create equitable river access by removing the longstanding physical barriers for residents. And again, that just goes with our strategic plan goal number 4, foster recreational opportunities for all ages and abilities, restore safe and reliable water access for residents, and again, uphold excellence in community safety. That's one of our strategic planning goals. We want to be able to fix the damaged parking area and use the opportunity to expand the parking area before, even before the storm. We'd have people parking down Hooper Lane because of the small size of that parking lot. So that's been a need for a while. We want to be able to provide new recreational amenities to the community that not only is it an awesome recreational amenity for our community, but it also really helps strengthen our application and our chances of being able to get this grant. And it really just demonstrates the town's commitment to our recovery. You know, people are really eager to get back there and make it better. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike because we have some being in the river. We know that's been a topic you guys have talked about a lot. So I'll turn that over to Mike to kind of talk through.
Thanks. So Nicole shared some of these preliminary plans with me, and of course, you know, the first thing I wanted to check out was our new hazard prevention ordinance for flood-prone areas. So currently, the ordinance prohibits any type of governmental development in the floodway. But what's development? So the definition of development is only triggered if you're doing certain things. So if you'll remember back to the discussion we had before that was adopted, there were discussions about how governmental uses, whether it should be a strict interpretation with very limited or more wider. And we kind of went with the middle. And so what it says now is that if you're in a floodway, which there was a lot of it on the current park property, you can only, as a governmental entity, clean up storm debris from a declared natural disaster and then repair your infrastructure and any structures there, but only to the pre-storm condition. So it doesn't, and you know, it doesn't contemplate expanded public facilities. Now, an expanded facility would trigger the definition for development, and then the whole ordinance applies. And we basically, you know, with the conversations with council, the consensus was that the floodways should not be developed at all. And so that is the dilemma we're in right now, is that any expanded facility would trigger the ordinance definition of development, and that doesn't allow expanded governmental facilities in the floodway itself.
Yeah. And I'll just jump in real quick. The other thing, as council may remember, is the discussion around the hazard prevention ordinance being put in place through policing powers as a mechanism as the conversation continues to shift within the UDO and the land use, you know, authority that is within there. And so right now, the hazard prevention ordinance, again, as it's currently passed, would hinder any type of repair of past pre-disaster conditions. And that's why we're coming to you all for guidance, because as we've explained, we don't currently have, if by bringing it back to pre-disaster, what does it actually involve for us? We're not necessarily, and this is going to be queuing up for what you're going to be seeing here in a minute. It's not necessarily asking council to consider immediately changing the hazard prevention ordinance. Again, council can update that at any point that you also choose. But we are looking for guidance due to the UDO process, and because we have 3 years to start working on this project, obviously we don't want to wait that long. That whether or not, if the hazard prevention ordinance is not open for discussion at this point, is there openness to discussion through the UDO process for more allowances for governmental public uses, for public funds? And so with that piece, then we would be able to at least get some guidance and some comfort level to continue this process, because it is such a time intensive and resource heavy process.
And I did.
I think we need to get through the weeds on this right now to help staff one way or the other. So I'm gonna, you know, I always do, I'll start over here and work our way through. Your opinion on future further development in that floodway, be it governmental or not. Or governmental, I should say. I'll leave that word out of it.
I'm not really crazy about doing backfill and building up when we're telling other people we can't, they shouldn't.
And if I may, Mayor, if it pleases council, I think the presentation that we're going to go into on the options will
Okay.
answer some of these questions about backfill and all of those questions.
Yeah,
as well
I
to help-
think it'll make it speedier. That'd be okay.
Yes.
So I did just want to say, we looked at the different sections of the ordinance to see if there were other options, but because council wanted it strict with no development in the floodway, there is, the ordinance as it's written, doesn't even allow variances for floodway. And go to the next slide. The other thing to consider, when we were writing the prevention ordinance, there's a lot less floodway at the crosshatched area on the new properties versus the current. But keep in mind, as the town chooses to develop the new properties, this same issue will come up as well as we look at river access specifically and river restoration projects.
Do you have a picture of what you're proposing and doing and how,
Yes, so we have a couple of options. One, I just want to make clear, so nothing that we are proposing on either plan raises any piece of this property. So, so parking lots we're not recommending raising them. It will be on grade of what it is now, or even like in the garden areas. You can see where we've actually lowered it to help with flood resilience. So this is kind of one option that our engineers looked at. And neither of these, like, we don't have to pick one or two. It could be, if there's appetite to do this, it could be a combination of the two. But this one involves meeting the needs for expanding our parking lot. This one keeps the boat launch in its existing footprint, but making it ADA accessible, putting some armoring around it for resiliency. But it does add a shaded picnic area, again, that you're just talking like some poles in the ground. So again, nothing that's gonna raise or move anything. Some concrete yard games where you have like more permanent, like a cornhole board that people don't have to come bring their own. We have it there for them. There's some great options. Ladder golf's a really big one for permanent yard games. So we're really trying to make it this inviting space where people can come picnic, they can swim in the water, they can have this access piece. And then we also want to add we know it's going to flood, right? We know it's going to rain. Right now, we have such issues with even just a small rain. And so we really want to focus on those small rains of being able to keep water off our path, keep water out of our parking lots, but then also be resilient for when we do have those big floods. So that's why you see a lot of those rain garden features. And that's a really great educational opportunity for us. So as I said, this is kind of your first look of this. Obviously expands the footprint quite a bit with the expansion of that parking lot. The picnic tables, games, all that is very minor. The garden areas you see, that's again natural features. It's not built structure. Really where you see your biggest area of your built structure is going to be in the boat launch itself, because just by being ADA accessible, the ramp has to meet certain slope guidelines. So that's where you see a big difference in that area. The second area we have now, with this one, we remove the parking lot, so we know we do have a need there. But just to kind of minimize that footprint, and that is a gravel parking lot. We're not proposing that being asphalt or concrete, other than in the last one, just the addition of one more handicap accessible parking area.
Yeah, and
That
just as a reminder, it is below grade, and so to that, the concept would be sloping the parking lot down to that water retention area to help with, water retention and resiliency.
and the stuff you're looking to put in there is gonna be something that if it floods, it's not gonna hurt it?
Yeah, it would either be removable that would, we know a flood's coming. So it's either something that's going to be very easy for our staff to remove, or again, yes, it would be resilient for flooding. So a lot of them like a big heavy concrete table. There's these really cool, and they're basically tables in it's like chessboards, like people can come out and park under shaded tree and play on a chessboard. I mean, those things are 450 pounds. They're not, even Helene is not gonna move those tables real far. So the whole design is based around that's gonna be very easy for us. We know it's gonna flood. We're gonna plan for that and make it where it's very easy for us to clean up and get back to moving the next day. So the one difference in this one, which does go into our, the section up here, is actually a proposal to relocate our boat launch. So what happens right now is we get, wish this was a little finer, but what happens with our water, what happens with our water is it kind of comes around the curve. Oh, the top one. Here. So what happens, so water obviously comes from upstream and it comes around here. And so what's happening is it's hitting this bank very hard. It hits the opposite side of the bank very hard, which is why our fishing pier did not sustain a lot of damage during the storm. But what happens even with regular rains, when it hits this, it flings it back very quickly directly into where the existing boat launch is. And that's what happened during Helene is all the water came flying around. So by putting this on the inside of this curve in the river, we'll actually have more resiliency with the boat launch just by moving it that little section over. We would still propose this to be kind of like we have rocks on the other side. We know people are still going to want to use that as river access, but we want it to be natural and resilient. Where we would put like large boulders that are kind of like a step down. So we'd have our handicap accessible piece here, but still keep that as a more natural river access there. And so this is obviously a lot less concrete by moving it. So we have less concrete just because of the width that was needed to fill that other spot. So overall, I think it's a great project. What we're looking for is, again, what Mike mentioned, some feedback about the ordinance, because as it stands right now, we wouldn't be able to do either of these as it currently stands. And again, we don't need your decision today that we have to change it and today. But if we are going to apply for this grant and if we get it, there has to be a commitment that we would be able to change our ordinance through the UDO that we would be able to actually do this if we want to proceed. We obviously also want your feedback on the design and concept. If there's preferences, do we want to look at expanded parking, some of those sort of things. But we do also have a very tight timeline. So January 28th is the application deadline. And so to do that, we do need project scope, cost estimates, all the supporting documentation we have to do. This grant application, as I said, there is less. We don't have to have official approvals from Parks Advisory Boards and go through a lot of those pieces. And again, just a reminder, it is a 50-50 match. So we don't know if we'll get FEMA funding at this point. So the town, if we do accept that money, we may not know by the time we apply whether we get FEMA funding or not. So you would just have to make that commitment that, we're willing to pay 50%. Although we do feel pretty confident we will get some FEMA money. I don't know that I wouldn't imagine it'd be 50%. But I think we can do this for a good cost. We would anticipate that it would be awarded in March, and typically when it's awarded in March, you would get a contract by May, and then once the contract's signed, you would have 3 years to complete the project. So,
Do you have any idea of how much it's gonna cost?
yes, actually
Bottom.
yeah, beach side. So this is what our engineers have come up with costs for each design. Now, if we decide to go, say, with this design, because we like the location a little better, but also the bigger parking lot, he feels pretty confident it's a wash. So basically, if we include the bigger parking lot, rain garden, this is going to be your cost. And then if we decide not to do the parking lot expansion,
I can't see that.
yeah, 468,000. I think it was
It's in this handout.
on your.
So
I looked that a while ago and it's misplaced.
Yeah, so it's 400, it's
Here.
slightly over $450,000 for the option 2, slightly over $600,000, 615 approximately for option 1. And I do be remiss if I didn't mention again, when we looked at this, and I think we feel like we've met about this every day since it was announced, as well as talking about FEMA every day. is really looking at that strategic planning goal 4. I know we're still not done with the strategic plan objectives and we're working through that. But when looking at that, we really try to look through that lens of how can we, if we're having to rebuild, how can we truly foster recreational opportunities for all ages and abilities? And that was really the focus of these two, to at least try to get feedback on and see any interest.
Oh,
So,
go ahead. Go ahead.
you mentioned that, so really you have to have a decision whether or not we would be willing to change the flood ordinance by January.
To apply, like, I would not recommend we apply, because if we get awarded the grant
Right.
and then we say, no, oh, sorry, we can't do it, it definitely is remembered for future grant. So I would really want to make sure we had a commitment that whatever, if we are going to submit an application, that the town is committed if the town does receive the grant.
I mean, for me personally, the whole point of the floodplain ordinances was not to touch the flood way. And by modifying the floodway, and especially adding material to the floodway, we're not raising it, but we're creating more matter per se, picnic tables, concrete. And I know we didn't get as affected by Helene as other people, but you go look at boulders that got rushed down in other places that are tens of thousands of pounds. And if that ever comes through here, it's going to rip all that and push it right into that bridge. So my thing is that's what we're trying to prevent. So I think we would be just going back on what we just did. So I would not be in favor of going back on the flood. That's for me personally. I mean, I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that.
Well, I've got a couple of things that come to mind. I believe that accessible is ethical. It's what I teach my civil engineering classes. It's the right thing to do. And to expand the ADA accessibility, I think is something that we need to do. Anything that goes back needs to be accessible. I personally, we were talking about the safety ordinance for the floodplain. Anticipating having to do this was not, I didn't anticipate, this is something we don't normally anticipate having to do because this is a unique situation. I personally wouldn't have a problem changing the ordinance to address the ability of the government, us or state government, whatever, to build a facility that we need to build, to go back. But I think if we just go back the way it was, we're not making it accessible. To just go back and replace what we had, like you said, it wasn't fully accessible. So I want to build it back. I think the community wants to build it back, and I think we need to make it accessible when we do. So if we can't do that under the current ordinance, if we can't reach the river, kayak launch is no good if you can't reach the river from it. I think that's something we need to look at. How can we do it in a way that's not hypocritical, but then again, gives the people back the resources that we had and make it accessible. That's my thoughts. So I would be willing to change the ordinance as necessary to make this happen in a way that makes sense. It's not, we're not going to cause the world to end if we fix that one part of the ordinance to allow us to go back and.
You do realize, running an open meeting, you do realize that them farmers and developers could come in here and preach the same gospel, that this one thing is not going to. And I just don't want us to
Yeah.
set a precedent as being governmental and having an overreach on things.
Right,
Either the
and-
Mills River. Just make sure we don't overreach here as a municipality, because we just said that a few months ago. As bad as it stings, that now that we see we need it and it's in our non-favor, I think that's some stuff that we should have been really digging hard on, looking into a little harder
Mhm.
then than just a few months later. We're going to get beat up. I'm not afraid to say it. I'm retiring. The Mills River community could hold you to some of this stuff. and, you know, and debate you on it. So just, be leery of your, and I want to hear from everybody.
I'm just telling you what I'm thinking, and it may be wrong. It may not make everybody happy to say it. But if we're going to have a boat launch, if we're going to have river access, it's got to be accessible. So we got to figure out how to make it happen. Otherwise, I'll say, tear it up, turn it back to the natural ground.
Yeah, I'd be more in
If we-
favor of that.
If that's the other option, because if it's going to be built, it's got to be accessible.
And to be honest with you, I would be more in favor of doing that than putting it back in. Because I know that how many times have we repaired it already?
Yeah.
Oh, since it's been in.
A kayak is something you pick up and carry. You ain't gonna back a truck down to the river to unload it.
But
I
they
mean-
use it for,
The biggest thing I would be worried about is handicap access.
mhm.
That does need to be done. But
Well, can I ask a question and make clear all this up? I think maybe. Is any of the things we're talking about doing on our property not allowed by right with any of the other floodplain or floodway people, residents? Can they create their own boat launch? Can they get permitted for such a thing? And then would it be allowed? I'm not got a problem with it if the neighbor can do it. You know, I would really want us to consider the anchorability of these, you know, stuff. And, you know, and the possibility, we got drinking water just right down the hill from there, and we're talking about parking, and y'all wasn't here. But our beef years ago about putting cars down there was the possibility of a petroleum leak. Just years of drippage and it going into the waterway supply that's getting pumped out with less than a mile from there. So I think there's a whole lot to this puzzle that we don't want to overlook. We're talking about safety. The whole floodway thing was about safety. But man, it's giving me heartburn to tell everybody you can't, but turn right around and tell our constituents we're going to. Now, that's not the Mills River way of doing things.
well, it's different if it's a utility or something that you have to have, running
But
water.
that's gonna be a
because we
hard
discussed-
sale that you've got to have that.
Well,
How many years?
but
did-
I mean, we already discussed that and put that in the provisions that when we did it, utilities and water and stuff like that was allowed. But, this isn't that.
You know, do we know for sure that this is a public safety entryway for the fire departments, for emergency management? Is this on their map to use this? Does the sheriff department know if, they could possibly be a car enter into there where they wouldn't necessarily normally look for somebody to run off in the river?
I think it has an assigned address.
Yes.
Okay, that's good to know. I mean,
Yeah.
that's need to know stuff.
It does, and I would just also, I guess, want to note too, people will find their way into a river. I mean, we've seen it other places in town. There's one of, like when we did our Parks and Recreation Master Plan, after walking trails and greenways, people wanted additional river and boat access. And people are making their own. I mean, you can go talk to Valley Ag and see how many people they run out of their parking lot of people trying to get boats put in the water.
Right.
So I do think if you take the only public access in Mills River away, people are still gonna find a way and it's not gonna be safe. And it's probably gonna be on people's private property. So I mean, I just wanna.
Well, they can always go up to the forest. I mean, you got a national forest, it's not even 2 miles away.
So did this money for this engineering and all, was it generated out of your fund balance for your general fund balance for the park, or how did that?
There's been no engineering done for this yet. This is just concept plan.
So no
this is-
money, this is all just in-house
This
stuff
is-
here.
Yeah, I mean.
The engineering firm didn't generate this.
Well, they did. So yeah, very small amount of money for concept, but there's been no engineering studies, no any of that sort of thing at this point.
And just for clarification, since we're running those two items in parallel, we're asking them for assistance on, pre-disaster conditioning pieces.
See,
This is just
gotcha.
falls within that.
But at some point in time, we just got to understand that this is, appears to be, and I may be wrong, but it appears to be turning into somewhat of a money pit, potentially. I mean, can we even construct this at $614,000, which is a beautiful facility? but can it withstand the next storm?
How long is it gonna last?
That's what I'm asking. I mean, is it right for us to spend taxpayers' money on this, knowing that it's already failed numerous times? And is there a generation that's willing to spend whatever it takes to make this happen when we know we've got a major park expansion coming anyway? We
And
can't buy insurance.
I mean, I could get on board with it if we could go to the Army Corps and say like, hey, can we make some changes to the river? You know, can we get something done? And I know we can move the river because they're doing it in other
Oh.
places. The Army Corps is doing it. So, I mean, I would rather, if we could get to fix it, maybe the problem is it's just not the right location and the right piece of property to do what we're wanting to do. And we're going to keep battling this. You know, I would love to be able to provide it, but if we're gonna keep fighting this for the rest of the town's history, maybe it's just not the right spot for it, and we can't provide that service. So that's what I'm afraid of, is we're just gonna keep doing this,
But we can't move it.
but we can't move it. So it may not be something that we can provide on town property. I mean, maybe maybe that's just what we can't do unless maybe we need
Because
to
of,
partner with
because
something
of the
else.
location it's in.
Yeah.
It's in the floodway.
Well, but we can still have river access there. And we can still figure out a way to make it a flat level, you know, even if we just grade the ground off enough to where handicapped people could get over there and have access to the river.
It's gotta be concrete.
Yeah, it won't
It's
be
gotta be a
It's-
hard
yeah.
surface, all weather surface.
It don't have to meet a certain standard in a code, provision.
Another consideration is the hazard ordinance, again, allows it to go back to pre-storm condition. But then, based on my conversations with Nicole, you're not gonna hit all the check boxes to probably qualify for the
Exactly.
private funds.
No, if we were just gonna put back as is, I would not recommend we.
So. And another thing, how much of a delay, if any, would this put in moving forward with the cleanup back there? Because, we're getting beat up on a regular basis about when you're getting after it, I don't know, do we even have a start date in mind for any of that? Which,
Sorry, go ahead,
Yeah.
Nicole.
No, I was gonna say, this is, because this specific section was cut out from the rest
Okay.
of the work. So as, the town manager mentioned, that work's already started as far as
Okay.
surveying and stuff that began this week.
okay,
So while it'll still be several months before they actually see machines on the ground, that work has already begun.
I got you.
So this would not affect that in any capacity, but also any work here is not included in the work that's already begun. So this is still just kind of continuing to sit there.
Just as a reminder for council, the rationale for cutting that out was because of the engineering that was required for this work relative to on the other project. We didn't want to delay the other project, and so that's why it's cut out.
One other item for council consideration is just if you choose to move to amend the hazard prevention ordinance, we actually wouldn't even need to change the allowed development types. The sentence that is the problem for us is returning to pre-storm condition after disaster. So it is literally probably changing those couple sentences of language, because again, the governmental public utility entities have that ability. But again, it's just because we included pre-storm condition only, those are the words limiting us. It wouldn't involve going through all of the development types again.
Like, so if we changed it to or you know what I'm saying? My fear would be, I guess, how do we word it in a way that it doesn't allow,
Pre,
go ahead.
it'd be pre-storm condition or more flood resilient infrastructure.
But
That's
could we,
ADA accessible.
but could
if
we
it's
assign
necessary.
that to all the floodway though, and make it look like it's uniform from one end to the other?
For all users,
Yeah, I mean,
that'd be a council decision.
but I mean, do you think the planning board and all would be okay with that?
No idea.
I know.
My only
So-
fear about it is if you say more resilient, is somebody gonna say, well, I raised it, I put a buffer in of 10 feet.
Well, and how,
That makes it more
yeah,
resilient.
what's that definition
But-
look like and engineering look like?
But what you're saying though is that anyone who has a facility, existing facility that's damaged by a flood can build it back to meet current code. something like that, which the code says it's got to be accessible. Right?
I mean, I think we need,
I
I
think-
mean, I know we're running out of time, but I would sure like to see that, and it's gonna have to go to a regular meeting anyway to get movement on it, so maybe staff can take a little bit of time and try to generate us that language to look at and see, we got one missing
Right,
member
James will be
anyway.
here.
I don't feel like it's fair to move much on this tonight anyway, but you bring it forward and we'll see.
We're just looking for direction, I think.
Yeah,
Don't-
and I just especially, and I think this is a conversation that needs to happen whether we have this grant or not, right? Because we are, I know my users are gonna demand that boat launch put back.
Yeah,
They are.
yeah.
It is a heavily used access point. So whether we apply for this grant or not, I do think it's a conversation that needs to be had. But we are on a short timeline for this grant. So, I mean, even coming back to another meeting and that's okay. I mean, we can't apply for every grant opportunity. If that's the route we want to go.
I
But
think
we
as a
just-
mayor, where I would get challenged on this would be, does this fit our same driveway? Like crossing these floodways to get to property on the other side, such challenges as that. Y'all are not raising it, but are y'all taking up more space or redirecting water? Or could it be challenged that, hey, you're kicking all this water back down this boat ramp as it ends up in the Mater field on the other side? Could it be challenged? I'm just trying to look after us in general from years to come, I mean, that would be my worst nightmare. We already know it erodes that other bank. But if we move this boat launch up there and say common sense Kirby ain't here no more, and that next guy says, well, then that whole parking lot and everything was getting directed over here. It's what eroded this bank out and cut half my tomato field away. And then we're in a big lawsuit. I'm trying to look at it from that aspect too. It could be challenged. Could they win it? I don't know. But I'm sitting here looking at, if I see it, somebody else see it. I'm seeing it here tonight, it could be a potential frowned upon issue. But I see the need for it. And it's in the lowest possible place. And when you get that elevation change, you need to be as low as possible before you enter into the water on a regular, water level. So, I mean, it's in a perfect place. It's just,
And I can be on board with the, changing to the ADA access, I have more heartburn probably about all the additional features, the additional parking and the additional picnic tables and all this other stuff.
So the grant allows for those things, but it doesn't require them.
You're not gonna have a competitive application.
Yeah, without.
It's all based on a point system, so
Yeah.
unless you add, new recreational amenities or facilities, and what they call support facilities, which would be expanded parking, things like that. It's just not gonna be a very competitive grant.
right. Makes sense.
I know this, I think this was hit a little bit as well before. We didn't get into the details of what's on these maps. We could, to be able to zoom in. But all those items such as, potential trees for shading, potential, items that are down there, even the ones that just are there for extra points because they're good recreational opportunities are designed to be within those types of environments as well. So they're, it's not just like you may see cornhole boards up there, for instance, but it's not pulling out cornhole boards and putting them down there. They're a set
Right.
type facility piece.
Right. But going back to that, I'm asking the farmers to anchor their tanks, anchor this, anchor that, as long as this stuff could be fit in that same category. Like, once again, I just want overall unity here. They didn't like what we did. They've asked us to go back and change it. I would say that if I went back and modified, it at all, then that would be the perfect time to modify this. I'll say it that way. If we're gonna modify that floodplain, and if they didn't have a problem with this, and the community didn't, then we would modify all at one time. But if not, I think it's only been months. I think we need to just stick with what we got, as bad as it tastes, and just lick our wounds and make an executive decision. Is this feasibly able to sustain the need for it, I mean, cause this is big money. I mean, these, and I mean, it seems like a one-time bill, but I don't know how many times I've looked at this, Nicole, even before your time, it's like, we're really spending this much money just so people can get in the river, you know? I get it. There's more people here than there used to be. We never thought about coming here to get in the river, as a lifelong
Right.
member.
Right, we go South
Yeah,
Mills,
we go,
Sycamore.
yeah, we go to different places, but people know this now, and so they feel the need to have it. But that's that right
Well,
there. That simplest fix
It's
is
hard to get
2 cents.
in the river anymore because it's all private property. It's hard to get,
The forest is still where the forest is.
On the government.
well, up on the government. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, we just gotta consciously think of all angles of this thing, because if we get a halfway grant, that's gonna cost us a penny. Gonna cost us a penny on the budget to get it back in shape. And we're gonna need every penny we can get moving any direction we go from right here, as bad as I hate to say it.
Oh, and just as a reminder for council, there, there has been conversation about a budget within the FEMA budget for this type of fix. So, it's not equated to that amount, obviously, but
Sure.
we, there are, we recognize that we have to repair it in some way, shape or form, or again, if council decides not to. And then also the same thing with the parking lot. So those were factored in for the fund balance discussion and where and having those funds set aside for FEMA repairs. I just wanted, it's not necessarily all excess funding that's not necessarily been thought through.
I understand, but it does look that way from our point
I understand.
at this point.
Yes, sir.
All right. Consensus moving forward, or looking for consensus moving forward on this.
Address our issues.
You got enough information from us to do such?
You have
Like
time.
to come back language.
Yeah.
It's a light lift because it's just
Yeah.
a couple sentences.
I think
And-
what that's gonna do though is it's not gonna give me the opportunity to complete the grant.
I understand. That's what
So,
I'm
and
afraid.
as I said, I do think it's an important conversation that we need to continue to have. But I do think this opportunity for this grant will be missed.
I understand.
It's okay.
Right. It would be
Well, we don't.
It's a
need
consensus.
To move forward, we wouldn't need a vote until it was final, but I can tell you it's also a lot of my work and staff time, and so if there is not.
Right, you're talking about us making a major policy change.
Yeah. It's a push. Yeah.
Well, you just need the guidance where we are gonna try to do it or not. It sounds like we're not gonna meet the deadline. I just don't.
That
think we
don't
can.
mean it won't happen, but it's
Right,
gonna
but
have
we're
to
not
come
gonna
with
meet
an
the
ordinance
deadline for
change.
that grant.
Yeah, and then it sounds like there's been a lot of conversation about the ordinance, the hazard prevention ordinance. The one thing again, for this conversation was during the hazard prevention ordinance, there was a conversation of then using that to revisit, then going through the UDO process. And so then there is that additional lever. Again, not necessarily the immediate direction that is necessary, but an openness and willingness of a consensus of council to consider those types of elements through the UDO process, but also give us guidance. The thing is to Nicole's point earlier, getting that and then not being able to do it if there's not a consensus of trying to get that in there through the UDO draft process would potentially hurt us for the future.
The part of the ball game we played months ago, folks. I mean, we do it all the time here in Mills River. We crack these eggs and open them, and then we're really not ready to crack that egg yet. We didn't really have all our information and think it all through good enough. We're smart, but we're not. We can't cover all the bases. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but with years of experience, it gets right by me. It does. I mean, I make mistakes building houses and I have to lick my wounds, but this is one of them here, folks. It won't affect you guys as staff so much, but I'm telling you, if we just make a change like this right here, and you're in one of these seats, you will no longer be in this seat, no matter how many signs you put up, because they've already got heartburn over it, and I hear it every day, and they keep wanting it changed, and I keep saying, we're gonna look at it when we get a chance. And I'm having to tell you folks the same thing right now. I
Yeah.
can't do anything different.
And if
Cause the ones that put me in the seats tell me they want it, they're wanting something done. Y'all tell me want something done. If I make that action tonight, I'll be held to pay for Shannon Gotts in the morning.
I apologize, Mr. Mayor,
Oh,
did
you're
not mean to
fine.
interrupt
No,
you
you're
there.
fine.
I just don't want to lose this opportunity to also say, we as staff also recognize that we, when understanding that this is a hard conversation, it was a hard conversation for staff as well, before bringing this forward. The timeline is what obviously drove this and the conversation also about, as I mentioned, being good fiscal stewards and always trying to go after grant funding whenever possible to help,
And
especially
I
with
praise
parks.
them for that.
So I just want to let you know that we, from the administrative side, we absolutely recognize that the difficult conversation. And that's why we also wanted to bring it to you all as soon as humanly possible. Obviously, we wish we had more time, because we know how weighty of a discussion that it truly is. And I just didn't want to lose that opportunity to mention that. And I really want to thank staff, for their hard work on this, because again, that getting this together under such a short period to be able to get this feedback as well is, it's a heavy lift. While knowing that there were hard discussions around the ordinance.
No, I think they're doing the, yes, no.
I
You're doing
hope-
what you have to do, and I appreciate that. And you're
Yeah.
always trying to improve
It's
the
not
park, and I think that's the job that you need to do. But
Yeah.
for me, it's not political. For me, it's always been about the floodway is the floodway. We have to protect the floodway. And that's what I'm about, for safety concerns. And it doesn't matter who it is, what they're doing, it's the floodway, period.
For me, it's accessible. Yeah, if we're gonna make it accessible, if that's the only ethical thing to do is to make it accessible. And if we can't make it accessible, then I don't know how we can do anything.
I've always preached the sponge and the floodway. If we lose that, we're done. And you can't push water up on somebody else. And I do want it to be handicap accessible. I want everybody to be able to enjoy it. And y'all do a great job. The park is wonderful. And I want to get that back there fixed so the residents can enjoy it. And I want them to be able to get back in the water because summers are getting hotter. And when the kids grow up and leave, parents ain't gonna be able to go down there and sit with them.
So, by consensus, I'm almost hearing a 50-50 split here, so I don't want to lead my staff off in the wrong direction here by my comments either, so move forward with any of this at this point, Sandra?
Not until we get things fixed.
Meaning ordinance wise, or I'm confused, I think. It's late. I'm just getting
I'm right there
confused.
with you. Um,
I'll go if you would do.
Yes,
I don't think we should apply for the grant.
okay. No,
no,
I don't see how we can.
all right, so not to say it's a done deal, but we're gonna have to revisit the ordinance first, it looks like, and then work back around it somehow.
Yeah.
And we'll come up with it. It's a great facet to the community, but we gotta make it where it's mitigated to where we can sustain it.
And just to clarify, with the grant not in play, do you still wish for me to bring back language, or do you want to just address that?
I think with,
UDO?
yes. Go ahead. UDO or this?
I'd say we can look at it with the UDO process.
UDO, we're already paying for it.
UDO. I mean, it'll
Yeah.
be here before you know it. I think that'll work. Okay.
And we address the concerns of other people as well that may come forward, so
Yeah.
that what
Everybody,
benefits
yeah,
us benefits and yet protects the floodway.
Well, I'm not saying I'm going to change it. I'm just saying it's a discussion.
it's so late right now. How about if we wait and put some more thought into it before we decide?
We don't have time for
really
the grant.
deciding
I
it.
know, I'm-
Yeah,
We're not
Grant's
gonna
off
be able
the
to do a
table.
grant.
Sure.
I'm talking about finding words to go ahead either for an ordinance or do it in the UDO.
I think this year would be as simple as just writing it on one of those cards last night, the question we're sending back to the UDO.
And then it will be in place.
Well, not that,
June 1st or July.
one way or the other. Yeah, it'll all be voted on at one time that way, and you don't have to have a special meeting for this one item. to
Okay,
Draw
well,
up
that's
dates,
fine.
start.
It's 10 o'clock. I'm wore out.
I hear you. We got just a
We were
couple,
out late last night.
we got a couple more things. All right, yeah, y'all good with what we got there?
Yeah.
All right,
Thank you, Mayor and
Thanks.
Council. I just, we are going to continue, we are still working, we're still on schedule for cleaning up the back. And I just want to reiterate, they have prioritized the timeline to get access into the river. First major priority to get there before the summer.
okay.
So late spring, early summer, still on track.
If somebody could just put out a Facebook thing that the surveyors are here and establishing
Mhm.
elevations and stuff, just so they know there is movement,
Sure.
it would soften them phone calls up a little.
Yes, sir.
Blue Ridge ABC discussion?
Yeah, so I'll be brief. The Blue Ridge ABC Board has approached the town and started conversations around the potential interest of having an ABC store located within the town of Mills River. There is no timeline that is there is a timeline that is recommended going into next fiscal year, late fall of the calendar year. However, as a first step, the Blue Ridge ABC Board has requested council to at least consider uh, whether or not you all have any interest in having an ABC store within the town limits. I do break down within the fiscal impact piece that there are potential fiscal impact, positive financial impacts to having an ABC store within the town limits based off of a distribution percentage that would be within a contract with the ABC board that would be negotiated during that time. That's down the road. But that would be based off of net profits of the whole. So right now, really what the ABC board has requested from council is just to get a pulse of whether or not there's an interest with them continuing to move forward with that potential.
I think with a missing council person, we would need to bring this to a regular agenda item for discussion.
Okay.
And, because that's all they're asking is basically, would we be interested or not? And I think in the discussion format, we could come to that conclusion.
Okay.
And by a motion of some sort and give them, where we are on it.
Yes, I will say, it's completely up to council. They did not necessarily request a vote on this because there's no vote on, any type of language or anything else specific. However,
would be-
council, if you all would like to do so,
Okay.
I'm sure that they would be open to it.
Okay. And at that meeting, we would probably want to see some physical numbers, potential numbers, let's say. Is any of that available to us? I mean, it's gonna be hard to make a decision on anything that pertains to money without something.
So again, that from my understanding, really right now, the reason why it's at this meeting and it's not in January is because if council gives general guidance that you're interested, that's when they're going to start doing the
Okay.
drafting of a contract and agreement, what that all looks like, which would be in the percentages based and the amount of potential funds would all be based within that. So we have some understanding of what like type communities may be, but it's all based off of a distribution model that, again, tonight would be whether or not you all are interested. It's not to say that you approve of an agreement. It's not to say that you are ready to sign the dotted line. It's whether or not they can continue that process and you would entertain a conversation around that agreement at a future date.
Is it something where you can get council member Cantrell's input with him not being here? Can you reach out to him separately and get his, because all we're given is the way we're leaning, right?
Yeah.
Tonight, we're not voting.
Yeah.
We're just giving you either a yes or a no to continue the conversation.
Exactly. There's no conversation about location, type, size, again, timeline of when a store would open. None of that has been set in stone yet. They've provided some tentative updates, but it's really about interest in looking at an agreement because you all are generally open to the potential of an ABC store located within town limits. I would say I can't speak for Councilmember Cantrell. That would be
Right.
inappropriate. And I think it would also be inappropriate for me to reach out and get that consensus, outside of this meeting. What I would recommend is if there is a consensus of those members here, that would provide me with guidance to respond to them. If it's not consensus, then I'll respond to them as well and say it'll have to come at a later date.
I know it's late and all, and I know what them numbers are, but it's just like me going, somebody asking me to buy, you interested in buying a new car? I don't even have a clue what color they're talking about, or what's available. So, but I'm gonna do the deal here. Sandra, you interested in following on through with this a little ways and see where we go?
I don't think it'd be a good fit for Mills River.
Okay, Jeff,
Same here. I can't support it.
okay, bye.
Buy alcohol every day, that's legal in Hays, so yes, I'd be interested to.
Yeah, I would too. I hate the thoughts of potentially losing that and having to raise my everyday non-drinking taxpayers' tax bill up. I would want them to say that had rather pay a little more as me to get it somewhere else. If I could hear it come out of their mouth, it'd be a lot easier for me to say no to that.
Well, I would say that the numbers I've seen are somewhere around $100,000 a year. And I'm not sure that
Uh,
we have anything we would have to raise taxes for to make up that $100,000 a year.
I would,
But
I'd rather us not discuss numbers because I do not agree with that number.
I was thinking
and-
it was on the
Well, let's
the
don't, if
handout,
we don't
but-
have it, let's don't
Okay.
talk it, because that's preaching to the choir. I think if we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do it with 4 members, which I don't really agree with on something like this, that we should, at least have information. It's hard that these decisions here, but once again, we're looking after 7,500 people. And I was here when all of these breweries and all come, and there was a big fuss about all that. And the taxes is really, with the infrastructure of all the industry and these breweries and everything, the population hasn't grown that much, but we've been able to pretty much sustain our tax rate. So I'm liking on that as a citizen myself, but
Now, the ABC tax we got last year off of the bars we have here, the brewery and the beer and stuff from the stores was what, 36,000?
yeah, but that is the tax off of it. We're talking about a profit, taking a potential cut of profit over the whole county's sales potentially. So let's just, I think we're at 2 and 2. So I don't know what we do here.
Well, from my consideration, you all are council, you all lead the decision. There's not a consensus on council for this to move forward. There's not a consensus for it not to move forward. So I would recommend potentially tabling it to the January 8th meeting. I would reach out to the Blue Ridge ABC board to see whether or not, again, from their perspective, that's still amenable to them. I think it will be, from my discussions with them, that they would be open to that. It may just, again, slow the timeline down a little bit. If I may, just Councilmember Moore, you mentioned numbers in the back. Those numbers that are in there, you have a draft agreement that's from the Laurel Park and City of Hendersonville piece in there. And so that has their breakdowns on it. And so, yeah, to that point, there have been some conservative numbers that have been thrown out, but because without knowing any percentage or that discussion, it would be hard to put a
Yeah,
number on
and
it.
I may have misread what was given to us in the packet, but there's just not a number that I'm comfortable with. So I'm not going to support it regardless. That's
Yeah.
what you voted for. You got a chance in 3 years to correct your mistake, and I'll hug your neck for it. But that's me.
All right. Any more discussion on this? Nope. Moving on. Future agenda items. Anybody got anything? Nope. Nope.
I make a
Okay.
motion, we adjourn.
No. I got one. So, Mr.
right.
Kimball brought to light tonight the possibility of us negotiating a few changes in this potential nuisance ordinance amongst ourselves as council without it going through planning board. I was under the understanding if we changed much of it at all, it had to go the full realm. But maybe once it goes to public hearing, if we change it at that point. So we could potentially have this on a regular agenda item for discussion and then put it back up to a public hearing on our own without it going through the planning board. And
So the nuisance ordinance is not a land use regulation.
Okay.
So it does not even have to go to the planning board.
Okay.
And we don't have to follow the the more large scale notice requirements because it's not a land use hearing. It is just a part of town code and again, operates under our police power to protect public health, safety and welfare. But no, this body has the ability with what notice of a regular meeting, 10 days notice for a hearing just for council to make any changes necessary, separate from any other body.
Okay. So with that being said, I would, like to see it get put on a future agenda to start out as a discussion item. To just look at just a few things, just a handful of stuff. And if we all agree on it, we like it, we stay with what we got. If not, we change it. And we go from there. In saying that, I noticed the other night at the planning board, there was some discussion on what the dollar figure would be before it went to maybe got sent to the lawyer or the collection firm to handle it from that point forward. It's the way I remember it. It's late. I might need some staff help in generating what that looks like, because I think some of them numbers I've seen could be got to in just a matter of days, depending on circumstances, and wouldn't give the applicant or the violator a chance to even seek their own, wouldn't even be thinking about getting their own attorney to represent them that quick and get behind the 8 ball. So that's the only other thing that I'd like to see in it that I would need help with.
If, as a potential area to focus on, would it be amenable to this council to bring forward on January a business meeting item around the process, the general process around nuisance violations, how they're handled with, paperwork, the timing, what state statute, et cetera, kind of an education
I
piece that would
think-
leave at the,
I think we've all here, unless y'all tell me different, we've all got schooled on that here lately.
I understood. I just wanted to make sure that's what I've heard.
I feel like I'm well educated in that now. Then I had some stuff wrong, and I admit to that. And I'm not saying you guys ain't doing a good job. I see myself just a few discrepancies in there that we could address. And if the rest of council agree with me, we'll make some changes. If not, I can live with it.
So would you like to have that discussion now, what those potentials are, and we can bring them for you January 8th for that discussion, or have the January 8th meeting to discuss potential?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm not prepared to give you all of them.
Okay.
I'm afraid I missed some because I just realized the opportunity when Mr. Kimball brought it to our attention early on. So, thank you for that. But yes, if we could just simply have a discussion item at the next business meeting and we'll just discuss it, and it may not get enough traction to even move forward. But if it does, then we'll start moving forward with it slowly but surely. Nothing has to be in a hurry.
We can at least bring the current ordinance and the prohibitions for y'all to look at.
Yeah, we can do that. Absolutely.
All right. Now I'll take the motion.
I make a motion.
I'll second it.
All right,
Okay.
you got a first, got a second. Anybody want to discuss why we're doing that?
All
All right, all in favor?
aye.
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 Any opposed?
Me.
Hear it?